Have you ever noticed how the smartest people you know can sit in a room by themselves for hours and actually enjoy it? While you're checking your phone every 5 minutes, feeling weird and empty when nobody's texting you back, they're just there, completely fine. Not because they hate people, not because they're broken or damaged, but because they've discovered something about human intelligence that most people spend their entire lives running from. They've realized that constant social noise isn't connection, it's mental pollution. And what looks like loneliness to you is actually the purest form of intellectual freedom. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most brilliant philosophers, understood this better than almost anyone. He deliberately chose to spend most of his adult life in solitude, not hiding from the world, but preparing his mind to see it clearly. But here's what makes Schopenhauer's approach to solitude truly terrifying to most people. He didn't retreat because he couldn't handle social interaction. He retreated because he was intelligent enough to see through the illusions that keep most people desperately clinging to constant validation, endless small talk, and the exhausting performance of being social. Today, we're going to explore something that might make you deeply uncomfortable. Highly intelligent people aren't running away from connection. They're running toward something far more valuable: pure, undiluted thought. Arthur Schopenhauer wasn't just some guy who liked being alone. This man spent 30 years by himself and basically cracked the code on how the human mind actually works. While everyone else was running around trying to impress each other at parties, he was sitting in his room figuring out why most people's brains are completely messed up. Here's the scary part. Schopenhauer didn't avoid people because he was broken or antisocial. He avoided them because he discovered something terrifying about social interaction. It literally makes you dumber. Every time you change your thoughts to fit in with others, every time you need someone else to tell you if your ideas are good, you're basically letting other people control your brain. Think about this for a second. When was the last time you had a thought that was completely your own? Not something you saw on social media, not something your friends would agree with, but something that came purely from your own mind? Schopenhauer realized most people are addicted to 3 things that destroy their ability to think clearly. They need constant approval from others. They can't handle silence, so they fill it with noise and chatter, and they let the group decide what's true instead of thinking for themselves. It's like junk food for your brain. Feels good in the moment, but makes you weaker over time. Here's what might make you uncomfortable. What if you feel weird when you're alone? Not because being alone is bad, but because you've forgotten how to use your own mind. What if all that anxiety you feel in silence is just your brain realizing it doesn't know how to think without other people's opinions? Smart people aren't running away from other humans. They're running toward something way more valuable: their own thoughts. Schopenhauer wrote something that will make you uncomfortable. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. But what he really meant was absolutely terrifying. Here's what he discovered. Every single time You need someone else around to feel normal. You're literally giving away your brain's most powerful ability, independent thought. Think about what happens when you're alone for just 10 minutes. You get anxious, right? You grab your phone, turn on music, call someone, anything to fill that silence. But why? Because your brain has been trained like a drug addict. It's addicted to external stimulation. Every notification, every conversation, every piece of social media. It's like a hit that keeps you from having to actually use your own mind. You've become so dependent on other people's thoughts that being alone with your own feels terrifying. But here's the twisted part. While you're desperately trying to escape silence, intelligent people are doing the exact opposite. They're seeking it out like it's the most valuable thing on earth because they've realized something that most people will never understand. Your best ideas don't come when your brain is cluttered with everyone else's noise. They come when your mind is completely clear, when there's no one to impress, no one to agree with, no one whose opinion you need to consider. That's when your brain finally starts working the way it was designed to. Schopenhauer spent decades in this state, and what he discovered about how the human mind actually functions will blow your mind, because it turns out everything you think you know about intelligence is backwards. Schopenhauer understood that intelligent people choose solitude because they've figured out what he called the crowd mind, and they realized it's basically mental prison. Here's what most people don't know. Your brain literally works differently when other people are around. You have two completely separate systems, social mode and thinking mode. And here's the scary part. They can't both run at the same time. Ever wonder why you can't solve a difficult problem when people are talking around you? That's not just distraction. That's your brain physically switching from thinking mode to social mode. When others are present, your brain automatically turns on what scientists call the social cognition network. It starts reading faces, interpreting voices, figuring out who's dominant, worrying about what everyone thinks of you. But this uses the exact same mental energy you need for deep thinking, creativity, and problem solving. It's like trying to run two apps that both need your phone's entire processor. Your brain literally cannot be socially aware and deeply intelligent at the same time. It has to pick one. Smart people have made a terrifying discovery. Most of what we call socializing is just people performing for each other instead of actually thinking. Every joke you make to fit in, every time you change your opinion to avoid conflict, every time you nod along when you actually disagree, you're training your brain to care more about being liked than being right. So they made a choice. They decided that having access to their own intelligence was more valuable than getting approval from people who don't even know who they really are. Watch how truly intelligent people act in groups. They don't jump in with quick responses. They listen, they think, and often they just stay quiet because they've learned something most people never figure out. The first thought that pops into your head during social situations is usually designed to get approval, not to be true. They'd rather have one real insight alone than 100 popular opinions in a crowd. Schopenhauer understood that intelligent people embrace solitude because they've mastered what he called the art of being alone, which is completely different from just being lonely. There's a huge difference between being good in social situations and being comfortable with your own mind. Most people think they're growing as a person by being social butterflies, but all they're really doing is getting better at reading the room, saying the right things, and managing other people's emotions. They never develop the most important skill, being fascinated by their own thoughts. Schopenhauer spent decades building what he called intellectual independence, the ability to think deeply without needing anyone else's input or approval. It's like training a muscle. Every hour you spend alone with your thoughts, not scrolling your phone, not listening to music, not texting someone, you're building your capacity for original thinking. But here's the problem. Most people can't handle even 10 minutes of pure solitude because their inner world is so underdeveloped that being alone feels like torture. It's like someone who never exercises trying to run a marathon. Their mental stamina for being with themselves is basically zero. This terrifies people who haven't built this capacity because when they're truly alone, they face the harsh reality of how few original thoughts they actually have. Without constant external entertainment, their mind either goes completely blank or fills up with anxiety, worry, and mental noise. They realize they don't actually know themselves at all. They only know the version of themselves that performs for other people. But people who've developed intellectual independence have discovered something incredible. Solitude isn't empty, it's incredibly rich. Their minds become like huge libraries, full of connections, insights, and ideas that only come out in silence. They can spend hours following interesting thoughts, connecting ideas in new ways, solving problems that have been brewing in their subconscious for weeks. And once you experience this kind of mental richness, small talk and social performance start feeling incredibly shallow and boring. Look at history's greatest minds: Einstein, Darwin, Newton, Marie Curie. They all shared one thing. They could disappear into their own thoughts for hours and come out with insights that changed the world. Every major breakthrough in human knowledge came from someone comfortable enough with solitude to think deeply about complex problems. But today, most people have trained themselves to be completely addicted to external entertainment and other people's opinions. Schopenhauer understood that intelligent people don't just tolerate solitude, they use it as their ultimate advantage. He saw what history keeps proving over and over. Humanity's biggest breakthroughs almost never come from crowded rooms. They come from silence. Think about it. Newton wasn't sitting in a debate club when he discovered gravity. Einstein didn't figure out relativity by chasing social approval. Darwin didn't unlock evolution because he was worried about fitting in. All of these revolutions in human thought came from long stretches of solitude, where the mind could finally break free from social noise. Here's what most people never realize. When you're constantly surrounded by conversation, distraction, and other people's opinions, your brain gets trapped in what psychologists call social limitation. Instead of exploring new possibilities, your thoughts shrink down to whatever will keep the group happy. You become predictable, safe, boring. But when you're alone, something shocking happens. Your mind is no longer performing. It stops scanning faces, worrying about approval, adjusting to what everyone else thinks. In that silence, your brain unlocks its deepest capabilities: creativity, problem-solving, and insight that can't exist in a noisy room. And here's the terrifying part. This freedom requires enormous courage, because in solitude, you face yourself with no filter. Every insecurity, every doubt, every uncomfortable truth rises to the surface. That's why most people can't handle it. They'd rather drown in constant noise than hear their own mind speak clearly. But intelligent people, they've built a tolerance for this discomfort. They've trained themselves to sit in silence until the noise in their heads settles, and what emerges is pure clarity. That clarity is their ultimate advantage. While the rest of the world is busy chasing likes, validation, and approval, they're discovering ideas that can change everything. This is the secret Schopenhauer saw. Solitude isn't a weakness. It's the launchpad for human genius. Schopenhauer understood that intelligent people don't just tolerate solitude, they use it as their ultimate advantage. He saw what history keeps proving over and over. Humanity's biggest breakthroughs almost never come from crowded rooms. They come from silence. Think about it. Newton wasn't sitting in a debate club when he discovered gravity. Einstein didn't figure out relativity by chasing social approval. Darwin didn't unlock evolution because he was worried about fitting in. All of these revolutions in human thought came from long stretches of solitude, where the mind could finally break free from social noise. Here's what most people never realize. When you're constantly surrounded by conversation, distraction, and other people's opinions, your brain gets trapped in what psychologists call social limitation. Instead of exploring new possibilities, your thoughts shrink down to whatever will keep the group happy. You become predictable, safe, boring. But when you're alone, something shocking happens. Your mind is no longer performing. It stops scanning faces, worrying about approval, adjusting to what everyone else thinks. In that silence, your brain unlocks its deepest capabilities: creativity, problem-solving, and insight that can't exist in a noisy room. And here's the terrifying part. This freedom requires enormous courage, because in solitude, you face yourself with no filter. Every insecurity, every doubt, every uncomfortable truth rises to the surface. That's why most people can't handle it. They'd rather drown in constant noise than hear their own mind speak clearly. But intelligent people, they've built a tolerance for this discomfort. They've trained themselves to sit in silence until the noise in their heads settles, and what emerges is pure clarity. That clarity is their ultimate advantage. While the rest of the world is busy chasing likes, validation, and approval, they're discovering ideas that can change everything. This is the secret Schopenhauer saw. Solitude isn't a weakness. It's the launchpad for human genius. And here we arrive at Schopenhauer's most profound insight about solitude. Intelligent people haven't rejected the world. They're not escaping life. They're preparing their minds to actually see it clearly. What looks like withdrawal to the average person is really training, a sharpening of perception. They've realized something that should terrify anyone who can't sit alone for 5 minutes. The highest forms of human thought, creativity, clarity, originality, require conditions that everyday life almost never provides. Constant chatter, endless notifications, and the need to keep up appearances, those are chains. Solitude is the key that unlocks them. Loneliness isn't the enemy. Noise is. And the silence that most people fear is actually the purest environment for thought. This is why history's greatest thinkers seemed strange, even antisocial. They weren't running away from the world. They were running toward the kind of clarity that makes real engagement with the world possible. Not shallow conversations, not empty validation, but deep understanding. Here's the part you might not want to hear. This is why Schopenhauer found solitary people not just intelligent, but dangerous. Because when someone no longer depends on approval, when their thoughts are entirely their own, they've broken out of the system that keeps most people obedient and predictable. Your discomfort around these people isn't just because they're weird. It's because you're recognizing deep down that they've accessed something you haven't: independence of mind. The next time you see someone who can sit alone in complete silence, who doesn't need to check their phone every few seconds, remember Schopenhauer's warning. They're not avoiding life, they're mastering it. And the terrifying truth? What they discover in that silence might be exactly what the world needs, but what most people are too distracted to ever find. So, here's the challenge. The next time you feel that twitch to grab your phone, turn on music, or message someone just to escape silence, don't. Sit with it. Let the discomfort rise. Watch how your mind panics without noise, and then push through it. Because on the other side of that silence is where your real intelligence begins to wake up. If you want more insights like this, ideas most people will spend their entire lives avoiding, make sure to subscribe. This channel isn't about surface-level motivation. It's about revealing the hidden truths that separate average lives from extraordinary ones. The question is simple. Will you keep running from yourself, or will you finally have the courage to face your own mind?